Rubel, and I'm here to walk you through month 4 of the Rainbow Kaleidoscope block of the month. Now, last year we did a block of the month with all of these blocks in a gray and yellow combination to go with the Pantone colors of the year. This year we decided to reimagine the quilt in a rainbow palette. So we'll be working our way through the rainbow, making a different block each month using one color plus black and white. And this month, our color was royal blue, and we made this block. Now there's a kit available for this block of the month at sitandSewFabrics.com if you search Rainbow Kaleidoscope, and you can find it and sew along with us. Each month you'll receive the directions to make one block, plus a link to the video tutorial so you can follow along and sew with me. Now when you watch the video for this block and for all the blocks, you'll see it done in the yellow and gray from last year. So for this particular block, it will look like this, but the directions work the same no matter what color scheme that you're working with. So follow along in the video, sew your month 4, or if you're new to this, head over, grab the kit, and join us. It's super easy to catch up, and at the end of the year, you'll have a gorgeous rainbow block of the month. I hope you have fun sewing along with us. So I'm going to line up my ruler on my square from one corner to another and cut across. Gives me 2 triangles. I'll do the same with the second one. And then with all 4 of my white squares. So once all of your white and gray squares are cut into triangles, we're going to start making the block. We're going to lay out one of the yellow squares and then take 2 of the white triangles and position them against adjoining sides of the yellow square. Now when you're going to sew these on one at a time, and when you sew it on, you want to align the right angled corner of your triangle with the edge of your yellow square, and your overlap will be by the point because we'll use that for our seam allowance. So I'm going to flip this over, line it up just at the top there, and put in 2 pins. And then I'll be sewing from that straight edge down to the bottom with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I've got my white triangle stitched on, and I'm going to press the unit so that the seam goes toward the white, and that will help us when we assemble the block. Now it's time to add the second triangle, which goes on to that adjoining corner. So I'm going to line up the straight edges by the 90-degree corner of the triangle again and pin and stitch right down that edge. Okay, I've got my second triangle added on, and in the same way I'm going to press away from the yellow There we go. And what I'm going to do is trim off those little triangle points, and then going to sew this together with one of the gray triangles. So I'm going to lay it on top, and they should be just about the same size. I'm going to flip it over this way because then I can pay attention to where my seam line hits right here to create a nice sharp point for that yellow square. So I'm going to put a pin in there, and then you'll want to pin these edges fairly well because the fabric is cut on an angle, so it's got that stretchy bias to it. So I'm going to stitch all the way down this long line, making sure that I stitch just right past where those stitch lines cross there for the yellow and to the end, and that will make 1/4 block. Okay, so I've got my gray triangle joined, and now I'm going to press the seam allowance from joining that. We're going to press towards the gray. Okay, and if you look closely, you can see I've got that yellow corner right there, and that's because of how I stitched on this side so I could see where that seam allowance was. So now we're going to make 4 total of these and then put them together to make the block. So continue in the same way to make 4 quarter block units. So once you have all 4 of your quarter blocks done, we're going to trim them up before we put them together. Now, depending on your seam allowance, you may have a tiny little bit to trim or you may have slightly more. But if we square them up, they'll go together much more smoothly. So lay your quarter block down. I've got a 6.5 inch square ruler, which is the size we need these trimmed to, and I'm going to align the diagonal line on it with the seam going down the center of my unit. Then I trim 2 sides at a time. You see I just took a tiny bit off of those sides, and then of course the little ears in the corner, and same thing, just the tiniest little bit. But again, that will help them to be more square. So the next thing is to lay out our quarter block units and then sew them together to make the finished block. You lay them out as shown on your pattern, but the large gray triangles are going to create a pinwheel. And so what I'm going to do is flip this one over and this one, and then you'll see the seams will nest in the middle for the from your half square triangles, and that will help to make nice points there. So I'm going to stitch all the way down here with a 1/4 inch seam allowance and do the same on the second one. So now I'm going to press my 2 block halves, and I'm going to press the seams in opposite directions so that I can nest them in the middle again. I'm going to press away from my gray triangle. Okay. And then we go to sew them together. Before I sew, I'm just going to double check again that everything's in the right spot. I've got my pinwheel look here. I'm going to flip that top unit over, and those nested seams will help me create my nice sharp points for the gray pinwheel in the center. And then the only other thing to consider is as you're sewing down this line, when you get to that center thick spot where all the seams are, you want to sew just to the outside edge of where those stitch lines intersect, and then you'll have nice sharp points. So I've got that main seam sewn, and now I'm going to press my block. And at this point you can press in either direction. It doesn't matter. I'm going to especially put some pressure on that middle where I've got all those different fabric pieces coming together. But you can see I've got really nice points there. So here's my finished block, block number 4. So we've got our 4 gray triangles, our yellow squares, and the white background, nice sharp points in the middle, and our block should measure about 12.5 inches square. I'm not going to trim up any of mine until all of my blocks are complete so that I can make sure that they all fit together nicely. So that's the end of block 4 of the Sunshine and Shadows BOM. I look forward to seeing you next month when we'll be putting together block 5. And here is a sneak peek of block number 5. So until then, happy sewing, and I hope to see a picture of your block on social media.